The February the 25th and March the 18th election were characterized by various factors that impacted the outcome of the polls. Many people say the Independent National Electoral Commission performed fairly well, but still has a long way to go in perfecting processes involved in the conduct of the election. This year's election also recorded some cases of violence that denied some people an opportunity to perform their civic right. Other issues like vote buying and trading, voter intimidation, lateness of INEC officials, failure to use the BVAS machines also characterized the 2023 election. Religion and ethnicity were also major pointers for some people in deciding who Nigeria's next leaders will be. One prominent issue that occurred during the presidential election was the results not being transmitted to the IREF portal, which the INEC officials said were due to cyber attacks. But the commission were able to nip it in the bud in due time. This is the crux of our discussion today, and joining me in the studio is the consultant and media to the governor of Ogun State, Ifekayode Akimbode. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a long time.
Yes, it's good to have you. And also here I have political analyst and an observer of the election, Nelson Ekunjumi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. Good morning, viewers.
Gentlemen, we need to review the recent election, and it's been a mixed bag of reactions that we have been getting with regards to the election. There are those who are for and there are those who are against. But from your observation, let me begin with you, Ifekayode. What did you observe shaped the outcome of the elections that we just concluded?
Well, thank you very much. At least Nigeria did not go up in flames, as
Right.
predicted by some prophet of dooms, I would say. I'm going to localize it to where I come from,
Right.
specifically because of Ogun State. Apart from what we read in the national dailies, the basic ideas we can have is where all of us are domesticated,
Absolutely.
where we reside, and what happened. In Ogun State in particular, 4 major issues shaped that election. The most critical aspect of it is money.
Really? How so?
We had principally 3 major political parties in Ogun State for the governorship election. We have the incumbent, Dapo Abiodun of the APC, Ladi Adebutu of the PDP, and of course ADC being backed by the former governor of Ogun State, Ibikunle Amosun. But beyond the issues of ideas, beyond the issues of development, beyond the issues of what can engender communal living, money played a critical role. We have instances where a particular candidate preloaded a card to the tune of 10,000 naira. It's all over the news. And stormed Imam Polling Unit, PU7, Ibara Onishasha Ward in Abeokuta local government. The party agent came with as much as 3 million to 1 polling unit. And you'll be shocked that if not because some of us are grassrooted and we are solid, and because Dapo Abiodun has performed creditably well, a lot of even supporters of the other party in power were swayed with the money. And it was unbelievable. Because the level of poverty in the land is...
When you saw that, what did you do? Did you report the case?
You see, beyond reporting, we have a governor who has a grassroots appeal. I'm talking about Dapo Abiodun. We have a governor who understands the dynamics of each region because he saw from the mistakes of the past leaders. He didn't do sectionalism in leadership. You know, I was listening to the PDP spokesperson saying that because the current governor, the new leaders come from Incumbency, therefore the people will benefit the more. Unlike Dapo Abiodun, he ensured that every senatorial district in Ogun State, every local government, there was no local government that we went to that we didn't commission a road. He helped him in winning the election. Okay. So when they were sharing money, we were running on the ideas of development. We were running on the ideas of vision. And so people reported. But you see, the tragedy of all of this is that even the security agencies were also, affected, because you can't see them. But money played a lot of influence. But in my own PU, in my ward, in my local government, we ensured that a lot of people were arrested. It's on the Twitter page of NDLA and EFCC. They were arrested with loads of cards from the PDP in Ogun State, sharing money, 10,000 naira. It's everywhere.
These are weighty allegations because
it is not. It's in the public domain.
Right.
Security agencies are in the know of what I'm saying. That in Ogun State, the major factor that decided that election, that contest, was the heavy monetization by the PDP in Ogun State.
And in the end, they still didn't sway in their
He
direction.
couldn't win the election. I tell people that it depends on the area you come from. For us in Ogun State, we are extremely sophisticated politically. In Ogun State, it's a cradle of civilization and education in Nigeria. So if you are coming to Ogun State and you think that money would determine what election, you are in for a shocker. The highest spender in Ogun State has never won any election in Ogun State. Check the history of Ogun State.
So because I'm wondering how that shaped the election, despite the fact that they didn't win.
Now let me tell you what,
and they spent so much.
Let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
Dr. Abiodun realized early enough that for him to get a return, because a lot of conspiracy were going on. Of course, we saw through the conspiracy, was that, like I reiterated, he had to fight to ensure that every local government, every ward has development. So some men who have conscience, a lot of people who have dignity, believed that some people collected their money and voted against them. In my unit, despite the money they spent, they lost. In my ward, despite the money they spent, they lost.
All right. So let's move away from money now. What else, quickly, because I need to move to Nelson.
We are, of course, regionalism played factor.
Yeah.
Leadership played a factor in Ogun State. And of course, religion. If you look at it globally in Nigeria, 5 basic factors determined the presidential election. It is regionalism, ethnicity, money, influence of social media, and of course, religion. Those are the critical factors. And how so? You see, when Asiwaju came out, it was very clear and very thorough about his vision.
Right.
And Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been a friend of everybody in Nigeria in the last 32 years. So, if someone who has that much of tenacity and political reach across the length and breadth of Nigeria was running on somebody who by moment of sheer opportunism, wanted to defeat him, he would have to do a lot more. And the result was very clear. Asiwaju won virtually everywhere. And look at the spread of that result. You understand? So those who played religious card couldn't get away with it. They were shouting Muslim, Muslim ticket. They have forgotten that what Nigeria needs is development. What Nigeria needs is peace. What Nigeria needs is economic development. What Nigeria needs is prosperity. What Nigeria needs is image that will engender international relations. So if you shout religion, for example, I'm a Christian, and I keep saying that when we had vice presidents as Christians, what has they done to me as an individual and to the Christian community?
There's not much the vice president can do as it stands.
But you forgot that they played that card. That was religious card. And they also played ethnicity card. We saw that played among our brothers in the Southeast. You understand? And of course, we also played it here. I must admit. Of course, because first and foremost, I'm a Nigerian. Second, I'm a Yoruba man from Abeokuta, and I'm a Yewa man. So all of us had to appeal to our people that, look, this Emilio is not about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's a contest of ideas and development. Somebody who had performed credibly well in Lagos and created a platform. If anybody becomes governor in Lagos, a poster boy to the party. I said, look at what Lagos has been in the last 23 years. This is exactly what we are going to have replicated when Asiwaju becomes president. And our people listen to us. And the person who championed this, Dr. Abiodun, they saw what he also done in Ogun State. So he can speak to them and they can reason with ideas. That was what happened. Right.
Let's come to you now, Nelson. He mentioned something, the aspect of money shaping, the narrative with regards to this election and the outcome. But then leading up to the election, the CBN had talked about, cash. There's been the issue of cash crunch and talking about engendering the naira, the fact that we do not want to spend as much cash. And so we mopped up all of the old currencies. And now we are still seeing that still influencing outcome of the election. Leading up to the election and the outcome, would you say that we have been able to achieve as much with regards to that aspect that he mentioned and every other thing that that shaped the outcome of the election?
No, absolutely not. Because if you talk about money, dispensing money is not only by physical cash. Like what he's talking about, the card. If I'm permitted to open my phone, I ran into a woman yesterday at the bank and she had 4 of those cards. She came to the bank, to cash it. But unfortunately for her, she said she couldn't cash it on the election day because the crowd was massive, that she was given one. I now asked her that these 4 cards, are they for you alone? She said no. I said, how much is in this card? She didn't know I was, doing investigative journalism. I said, how much is in each card? She said 10,000 naira per card. That one was given to her, one for her son, one for her daughter, and one for the husband. And, she was unable. We put it into the POS of the bank, the internal POS of the bank. And, it
didn't work.
It didn't work. It had the name of a foundation on it. So
Dame Caroline.
Dame something, yes.
Dame Caroline.
Yes, I have it on my phone, but
that's the mother of the PDP candidate.
Okay, I don't know it because
I know.
When we saw it in the social media, I thought it was all propaganda.
Right.
Until I ran into it physically. If the banker that I was with yesterday, because I told him I will be on air today, if he's watching, he can confirm what I'm saying, And if anybody wants evidence, it's right here on my phone. So for me, the issue about money playing a role, you cannot run away from it. That was why a lot of us, when the cash policy came into play, we looked at it, the level of dehumanization that Nigerians had to go through. And, we condemned that policy, and we still stand on that ground, that policy, no matter the lofty goal behind it, the implementation was, was cruel. Even this morning, coming here this morning, on major roads, you need to see the crowds in front of the bank, premises.
Yes.
It has become that bad. And, it's something very painful for me as an individual. Then other factors, like he has rightly said, the ethnicity factor was also very strong. Everybody, in fact, immediately after the presidential election, those parts of Nigeria, including our own party in Yoruba land, that were behaving more like liberals, now said, okay, if this is the game they want to play, we are also going to play this game. We also have blood running in our veins. And we also did the same thing, like you have said. So we are saying the truth here. Then you look about religion. For me, that was the most despicable aspect. And it shows the primitiveness of a lot of our people. Because I tell people, I sermonize anywhere I go, that religion will not put food on your table, but good governance. You should, in 1993, when late Chief M.K. Abiola was contesting under SDP, he had a vice presidential candidate who was also a Muslim, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe. The NRC had a Muslim presidential candidate in late Alhaji Bashir Tofa, and a vice presidential candidate of Dr. Sylvester Ogo, who was a Christian. And when the government of the day, through its orchestrated plots, because that government of General Babangida never wanted, to leave office, tried to play up that ethnicity and religion against us. Nigerians in their thousands, in their millions, about 14 million people voted in that election, came out boldly and said, look, our future is at stake. Religion will not put food on our table. Ethnicity will not put food on our table. Even in Kano, in Tofa's ward, in Kano State, late Chief M.K. Abiola defeated him. That showed the level in which Nigerians had made tremendous progress. But what have we seen over the years? After 1993, we have seen a degeneration in values. We have all failed in our responsibilities in our homes. That parents, like I've said it here, will know that their child or their son or daughter doesn't have a means of livelihood, but the young man or the young woman is bringing home cars, and nobody is asking questions. Right. The society has become a society whereby when you are propagating an idea, well, while you are standing on the rostrum, they are looking at your pocket. It's like, say what you want to say and leave that place. Come and, talk to us monetarily. The society has become materialistic than idealistic. And it is only ideas that moves the society forward. Where we have gotten to as the human race today it's the outcome of, propagation, and distilling of ideas. So for me, those critical factors that determine this election are something we all need to work on, because the role religion and ethnicity played, man, it was just humanizing.
One of it, if you look at the papers this morning, the UK was reacting to the election, talking about the matter of violence, electoral violence and all of it, how they are worried because they had observers in Nigeria that observed the presidential and the governorship elections, and they talked about the level of violence that was witnessed. We saw ballot box snatching, we saw BVAS snatching, we saw so many things happen, intimidation leading up to the election and even on the election day, and that is raising concerns. We thought that we had weaned ourselves off of all of this violence that we are witnessing with the injection of technology, but it's still very much with us. Yeah.
Well, technology has helped us tremendously, and I dare say that I must commend INEC because no system is perfect and no system is flawless, but there's a remarkable movement from where we were yesterday to where we are today. For example, every party, by touch of a button, can access their unit result down to the ward, to the local government, and can have ideas of how much they fared during the election. So, but in time past, they can go and wait for you, before you get to collation center, take away the ballot form for you, destroy it, and you're going to have result. We have had times in the past where people will take from EC8 and write whatever they want to it, and then go and announce it. It's pretty difficult now because there's a back end with INEC. So if you do such a thing, when you get to court, that would have issues. For example, in Ogun State, there is very minimal. We didn't record any fatal casualty in Ogun State. That Kwabiadu won convincingly in 2 senatorial districts, and able to won fairly in Ogun East, because that's where I come from. So in Ogun State, in Lagos State, in Ondo State, you will see that the level of sophistication was very high. Of course, opposition put up a steep performance, albeit, like I just earlier alluded to, monetization, which of course failed them at the end of the day. Because when you want to run an election and you are not very clear about the vision that you want to bring, a lot of people, because of education and sophistication, will still take your money and support development, right? For example, in Ogun State, for the first time in the history of Ogun State, since the creation in 1976, we have our own agro-cargo airport, facilitated by Dapo Abiodun. Since the creation of Ogun State, for the very first time in Ogun State, we have a local free trade zone that will engender development. For the first time in Ogun State, we have development across the 3 senatorial districts simultaneously, without sectionalism. And you're coming with money, thinking that Ogun State, we are poor people, you want to buy us over. We proved that we are all more core in Ogun State, and that couldn't have happened. So beyond technology, beyond the people are also wise. Those areas where you have violence, where those who feel that they cannot win genuinely. But unfortunately for them, you know what technology has done? Because we have areas where they did that in Ogun State. The results were already uploaded. Because when you finish counting, they will take the picture of your result, goes to BVAS. So when you come at the end of the day to disrupt that process, you're on your own. It happened in Shagamu local government in Ogun State. So they were expecting that because Akwa was winning in Shagamu, they wanted to go and destroy Ogijo votes. Unfortunately for them, INEC officials already uploaded it. So when they got to collation, after they destroyed it, INEC went to their portal, downloaded the results, and it was announced. That was how Dapo was able to win that election.
Right. Let's look at still talking about this matter of violence. Like I pointed out, the UK is concerned and is saying that is gathering information with regards to persons who have been said to have been involved with regards to this. But what are we doing exactly that we are not getting right with regards to addressing this matter of electoral violence?
Well, it is not only the UK government that
even the US is concerned.
The Nigerian government and the Nigerian people themselves were all concerned. It is something we must all condemn. It paints us in a bad light before the rest of the world. And for me, the responsibility now lies on all of us to ensure that as we have concluded this cycle of election, for us to go back to the drawing board and see how we can minimize, these infractions. The desperation of politicians, is what is at play here. People wanting to win at all costs. People not ready, to propagate their ideas and allow the people to decide, because people had days, months to endear themselves to the people. So if you have spoken to the people, the campaign window was opened as far as August, if I'm correct.
September.
So you had September, okay. You had September, October, November, December, January, and after about 5 months, what you can do is to use your supporters or members of your party to go and unleash violence at polling stations. So this is very, very unacceptable. It's unfortunate, and a lot of us are interested in seeing how we can mitigate this problem. For INEC, no matter what anybody says, INEC has done its part very well. People complaining about BVAS. BVAS functioned. Results were announced at polling stations. Party agents signed, and they got copies. So the improvement that INEC has, introduced into the system has in a way curbed electoral malpractice. So the area we are concerned with now is the area of electoral suppression of voters or intimidation, and snatching of ballot boxes. With the way it is now, you will see that areas in which these have been done in some places, like he has rightly mentioned,
and even rivers,
and it's even everywhere. Don't mention rivers alone. We saw it even the election was held on the 18th of March, 2023, and the election result was announced in some states just yesterday, 22.
Yes. 2 days after.
Yes.
About 4 days after. Yeah. So that tells you clearly that, there's something we are not getting right. And for me, for us to be taken seriously in the Committee of Nations is for us ourselves to put on our thinking cap and say, look, this problem, how do we address it? We have addressed voting by proxy through PVC. We have addressed electoral infractions of, writing results through BVAS, such that if 90 people are accredited, the results, the result total must be 90. Anything 91 shows that
cancels the polling.
Cancels the polling, and a lot of us are getting aware. So we need to increase our voters' education and call for ideas on how to address this problem.
Right. Now we saw outcomes of certain states. Let's take, for instance, in Kano. The NNPP emerged after 20 years. See, we saw that also happen in Abia now, the Labour Party having a governor after 20 years of PDP's rule. Now, what does that say? How is our political landscape changing with the emergence of these persons, these political parties, making a showing at the end of the day?
Abia is quite different from Kano. The character, the personality behind the emergence of a new governor in Kano State is widely known as the de facto leader of Kano. They call him Kwankwaso, and he has a movement called Kwankwasia Movement.
Yes.
You see, it's larger than life in Kano State. And wherever he goes, majority of the Talakawas in the sense that the ordinary people will follow him. I think it was his record of performance while he was governor of Kano State. But in Abia, Alex Oti cannot be wished away. On his own, he's paid his dues. He's been on ground for a long time. And of course, he also rode on the momentum of the Labour Party obedient movement to defeat, other contestants in Abia State. So, factors that, of course, defined this election. One is record of performance, as happened in Ogun State, as happened in Lagos State. The personality of the leader of each political movement as defined in Kano State. Not necessarily because, of course, performance, because we know Ganduje performed, but the character that has highest mass appeal was Kwankwaso, and he clearly had his way. In Abia, Alex Oti, despite the stiff opposition of, the incumbent, was able to use the Labour Party movement and the momentum, and they appealed to the younger Abians, in particular, the obedient movement, to win the election. So those are the critical factors, anytime, any day, that will shape election. But I'm also placed on record that violence should not have way in our electoral system. Anybody who knows he wants to win election in 2027 should start right now. Start with ideas. start with development. Continue to touch the lives of the people. Don't take people for granted. Don't think when it is 2 days to election, you start sharing money, you will lose that election. It's obvious now. Look at what Sanwo-Olu did in Lagos. Anybody who thinks Sanwo-Olu will lose, forget about all those social media shenanigans. Asiwaju is just a peace-loving person and allowed a lot of things to play out. They said that Labour, I would say that Labour rigged in Lagos during the presidential election.
Do you have evidence to prove
I
that?
have it to prove it because I'm a journalist myself. And we have, and see, when the chips are down, when this election is over, issues will come into the public space.
Election is over.
No, of course, when they say it's over, when Asiwaju is sworn in, and then when litigation begins, then you begin to see that, oh, really? Oh, really? We saw somewhere in Okota where they dug somewhere, and they were bringing in voters' card. In this Lagos state, who kept it there for what purpose? During the governorship election.
Do we know?
Well, some of us have ideas. In journalism,
No, we can't just, we have to
no, there's
place
what they call
facts.
shield law.
Right.
Shield law in journalism. When it is time to get to the court of competent jurisdiction, this fact will be laid bare. Don't worry about that. We are players, so we know what's going on.
Right.
Like in Ogun State too, what we have said here is in the public space. It's not an allegation. It's what we have seen. It's what Ogun State people know. You can't come in a national television and make allegations that you cannot put your back, you cannot substantiate.
Of course.
I've been in journalism for close to 3 decades, and I know the tenets, I know the do's and don'ts. So when I make assertions, I'm talking with
Our
authority.
viewers may not know. That's why I needed you to
That's why
clear
I'm,
here.
of course, being explicit
Yeah.
in ideas. And don't also gauge that our viewers may not know. Our viewers are educated. Bulk of those who watch TVs are
Not
educated.
all of them. So we have to make things clear.
So the clarity here
Yes.
is that those who think that money, violence will win election were largely disappointed. Those who felt that religious card win election were largely disappointed. Those who felt that voter suppression will win election, yes, they tried, but they didn't have their way. It shows in Abia. It shows in Ogun. It was clear in Lagos. Nobody would have allowed that Sanwo-Olu will win without wide margin in Lagos. But look at the result. Look at the result. No violence in Lagos. No violence in Ogun State. And because we are progressives, we won that election.
That result is still being challenged, though, by the candidate of the Labour Party, and he says he's going to defend that result. But before we get to that point, let me come to you, Nelson, with regards to some of the things he said. There was also the aspect of Zamfara State, where the power of incumbency could not play any role in the outcome of the election. How did that come to you?
Well, one thing you must recognize is that we run a political system these days that people like ideology, in which people, when they are aggrieved within a political system, instead of them, to ventilate their anger through the normal process, they resort to anti-party activities. If you look at the issue of Zamfara, we have, excluded that election outcome, and we have recognized that it was the intra-party crisis, that consumed the incumbent. Because this was an incumbent that had a running battle with his predecessor, Yari. And, despite all the concessions he made, there were some persons within the camp who felt, this is the, payback time. And that is why, that result unfolded the way it did. But for me, the most important thing is that, what this election has shown us is that the will of the people has prevailed, because every place where you have, where people feel you can just ride roughshod over, the electorate, they made a statement, with their votes, where you performed and people could see, despite all those primordial sentiments and, other, debilitating factors, that don't do our electoral system, that does not portray us in good light, they lost. He talked about ethnicity, for example. Those who played the ethnic card, we saw how they lost. Those who played the religious card, we saw that they lost. You saw, if you look at the result that the president-elect had, it was a pan-Nigerian mandate, you must confess. Because you look at the votes he had across all the 6 geopolitical zones. Even where he lost, he made substantial inroads. It was unlike, other candidates. You could see that even from the result, he was the only candidate that beat the 24 states, threshold. Other candidates didn't come that close, Yeah. So that tells you clearly the type of mandate he got. And for me, the president-elect, he has followed, in the footsteps of late Chief MQ Abiola. You know, this is a man who has touched lives everywhere. And like he has rightly said, even if you want to run in 2027, yes, you should have begun yesterday. Right. Tomorrow is too late.
Right. Now, there's this aspect of those who have, you know, queried and questioned the outcome of this election and are going to the court. For instance, the presidential candidate of the PDP has passed a vote of no confidence on INEC and has even said that he should be declared the president, or there should be a rerun. And then for Lagos, like we mentioned earlier, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party is saying he's going to defend the votes of, you know, his supporters on all of it. What do you say to these persons who have seen the outcome of the results, the voting pattern, the margins, yet are still challenging the outcome?
In journalism, we say opinion is free, but facts are sacred.
Yeah.
Most people do not understand that political leadership in Nigeria go to court not because they know that they can win, but to sustain and keep their followers for the next electoral cycle. Those are the facts that people do not understand. For example, in Lagos, the young man who ran against Sanwo-Olu clearly lost the election. He knows that he lost the election, but because he knows that he's very young, and so what he could do is to go to court, give hope to the younger element who supported him, keep the momentum. Of course, going forward to 2027, where, of course, he could keep the magic. If he accepts defeat and didn't go to court, a lot of his supporters will go into disarray. A lot of people will move away from him. So ideally, that's exactly what political leaders do all over. It's all about, and our PDP presidential candidate, he's been in this race for quite a long time. I mean, since 1992-93. He knows in his heart that Asiwaju won the election, fair and square. But, well, constitutionally, anybody who feels aggrieved, who feels you have been cheated, the court of competent jurisdiction is there to adjudicate.
Absolutely.
And it's in the law of Nigeria. If you have sufficient evidence, go to court. Don't resort. They were marching in Abuja. PDP candidate was marching in Ogun State. And I was asking, it's good for the body. You can exercise, you can, it's part of
Is that what it is?
Yes, they're exercising because going to storm INEC, what would that happen? INEC had responsibility to conduct the election and to declare results, and they have done that. And the Electoral Act and 1999 Constitution, as amended, was very clear that if you feel that you have been cheated, if you feel there are infractions in the election, go to court of competent jurisdiction to prove your case. Why disturbing the peace of the land? If you have substantial evidence, it shows that they like ideas. Asiwaju lost Lagos, supposedly. Lagos people didn't go on the street to protest. That is the hallmark of a statesman, hallmark of a man who runs and believes that in democracy, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But those who are desperate would want to win all the time. And that is not healthy for a democratic process.
Right. How do we address this matter of those who lose and then go on the streets to protest, protesting how the outcome of results? Is it that we do not understand what it is to lose or know how to manage a loss?
Well, I think it's an act of desperation. And for me, it is condemnable in the sense that when you were entering the race, the rules were very clear. There was the dispute resolution mechanism within that process that if you lose, and you feel dissatisfied with the way you feel you have lost, there's a window for you to address. I'm not sure going on street protest is part of the electoral system. It is not there. What is there is that you should go to court. And again, we must use this opportunity to admonish our people at home and wherever they are watching us, that please, when a candidate is going to court, you yourself, as citizens, you have a right to examine the facts. You saw a particular candidate claimed he won the presidential election on February 25, 2023. Today, he's in court asking for a fresh election. I've never seen where a student will say, I passed an exam, and you are saying, come and conduct another exam for me. So for me, it's ridiculous. So Nigerians themselves should wake up. Which, I told you about what I'm interested in. We should have an advocacy on reasoning.
Right.
When a candidate goes to court or when a candidate is talking, we should fact check him.
Right.
But a lot of times, these people they want to take us to be pawns on the chessboard, and we should say no to that.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up our conversation here now. We have run out of time, but I must thank you, gentlemen, consultant on media to the Governor of Ogun State, Ifekayode Akimbode, as well as political analyst Nelson Ekunjumi, for your time on the program. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.